Welcome back to Iconic Assembly. Today we're going to be shifting gears a bit and talking about a solo hero. Or should I say heroine? No, not just yet. Today we're going to be delving into the world of Supergirl. But first, a bit of background. Supergirl was a character introduced into DC Universe canon in 1959 in Action Comics. However, she originally wasn't really a superhero. She did some heroic things from time to time, but she was most often depicted as having a pretty mundane life, with just the addition of superpowers to the mix. Supergirl has been through more reskins, redesigns, and reimaginings than any other heroine in the DC Universe and possibly comics as a whole, even Wonder Woman. It's even down to the point where there are actually more than 3 characters in the DC Universe who have donned the mantle, while a what-if Supergirl type character, Power Girl, really managed to pick up some steam with the Justice Society. My personal favorite has always been Kara Zor-El, the most prominent and recurring iteration of the character. There are multiple iterations of the events that brought her to Earth, and why she's younger than Clark despite arriving when Clark was already an adult. The most prominent of them is that Kara was sent out in a rocket by her father Zor-El and mother Allura. Some continuities offer conflicting ideas as to when exactly this happened due to certain events that occurred on Argo City, but the gist is that while in space, her pod got stuck in suspended animation and she arrived on Earth over 30 years later, still a teenager. In my favorite iteration of the story, Kara is a bit headstrong, rash, and still trying to find her way in the world, but she has a kind heart and a good head on her shoulders. She's a good representation of a Superman who is more in touch with his own vulnerable side, being that she wasn't raised on Earth and therefore is constantly trying to adapt to Earth. This, however, is where the mythos tends to go ballistic. After a while, Kara became known as this sort of a wild child who completely disregards Superman and other members of her support structure, except Wonder Woman for some reason. She's a little too outspoken to be sympathetic towards, she's far more reckless, and she has little to no respect for authority, all whilst representing very ambiguous ideas of right and wrong. So, today we're going to be looking at Volume 1 of the New 52 Supergirl just to see where this little reimagining fits in.
Tougher than Cat's shield, heavier than Thor's hammer, smarter than Tony Stark, even mixed with Bruce Banner. Quicker than the Flash, darker than Batman's past, hotter than the heat vision of Superman days of future past. Comics and comedy, nostalgia, brutal honesty, the web series you wanna see, iconic phenomenally. Maybe just a reminder of what you like to see, so check the comics coming at you on your computer screen. This is iconic, phenomenally phenomenons, whatever planet you're rocking on, whatever channel you're talking on. Iconic, phenomenally phenomenons, whatever planet you're rocking on, whatever channel you're talking on. Iconic, phenomenally phenomenons, whatever planet you're rocking on, whatever channel you're talking on. Iconic, phenomenally phenomenons, whatever planet you're rocking on, whatever channel you're talking on. What?
I choose to ignore the cover since it's just Kara floating there, but I have a little something to cover here. I hate her new costume. For starters, I'm already sick and tired of this inlay look that Jim Lee is so fond of these days, but what's more, I'm really not liking the boots. Wouldn't mind them if not for those random straps above the knees. It looks weird. And I don't like the lack of a skirt, honestly. I've always liked her skirted look. I kind of like the cape, but I can't see any way that thing is secured around her neck. It looks like the thing is being held together by a paperclip. And I'll say it, I don't like her with short hair. That's something I can get over, but I just always preferred Kara having longer hair. But hey, what can you do? We open up on a meteor shower as someone is monitoring the situation. However, one of the meteors is a bit special. You see, instead of just hitting the ground, this one punches a hole through the planet and comes out on the other side of the world. I hesitate to make a joke here, as the scientists definitely know more on the subject than I do, So, if this is in any way physically possible, feel free to post a comment below. But, for the purposes of the review, I'm gonna make the joke anyway.
Fuck you, physics!
So the meteor pops up in Siberia and it's revealed to have actually been Kara's pod. Have you ever had that feeling?
Baby, I got that feeling, baby. Can't help it.
Kara's just waking up and narrating about the sensation of it when a few guys in mechs show up. Stop where you are! This is a restricted area! Yeah, bark orders in English to the alien. Makes total sense. They try to restrain her, but, well, that goes about as well as you'd think. Look, her clothes! That symbol! Shut up and focus! Yes, let's completely disregard the obvious connection to the most powerful man on the planet. There is no way this can backfire. So the sun conveniently begins to peek over the mountains, and she ends up blasting one of these guys with heat vision. In a below panel, we're basically informed that Kara has amnesia. Goody. So, like an idiot, the next mech attacks her alone. So I guess he wanted to learn to fly. Then Kara sees what I'm guessing is her circulatory system with what I suppose is her X-ray vision. If that's what this is, then it's a pretty lame representation of it. Explosions go off for reasons, and Kara decides to try running. But suddenly the super hearing kicks in and she starts feeling that overload effect. When one of the drones attacks her, she proves that these guys are complete and total idiots when she rips off the thing's arm and gives new meaning to the phrase, "Stop hitting yourself." After she peels him out of that suit like a banana, the other one holds a gun to the back of her head and she starts trying to make heads or tails of things. But right when it looks like she's about to give up, her cousin steps in and our comic ends with him telling her to cool her jets. So far so good. I'm not thoroughly impressed, but it was at least harmless. So let's move on to number 2. Actually, I should probably skip this one. It isn't that this issue is too horrible for me to put myself or you guys through. It's that the issue is really darn basic. Superman tries to calm Kara down and explain things to her, and she continually attacks him. That's pretty much the issue in a nutshell. But there is something I probably need to bring up. Superman is acting more like Superman here than he is in his own frickin' title. Seriously, not once does he try to lay a hand on her. Not once does he come across as rash or ignorant. Not once does he have that stupid little smug grin that he did throughout the entirety of Justice League War. This is how Superman should be written. We cut to some guy being given the Sunstone from Kara's pod, and that's it. I have some criticisms to throw into this issue, but there's a surprising lack of joke material here. I just wind up repeating myself over and over, so I'll just save it for the end summary. Issue 3 kicks off with a glaring art change. This is something I really can't stand about the early stages of the New 52. There was barely any consistency between creative teams. People were walking from books, getting dropped from books, leaving DC altogether. It was a mess, and I don't really like this semi-painted look they're going for here. The crisp cartoonish look they had for the last 2 issues worked fine. Kara is narrating to us about how she doesn't want to believe anything that Clark is telling her about Krypton's destruction. I want to laugh, but there's something in his voice, like he can only ever tell the truth. Said the girl who in the very last issue was attempting to beat the living daylights out of him because she thought he was lying. It's his voice that scares me the most. I'm sorry, Kara, but Krypton is dead. Of course, Kara continues to resist, even though she just admitted that she believed him. Superman gives a little speech about his adoption of Earth and his home. Then Kara flies off in a hissy fit and returns to where her pod was, somehow knowing exactly where she landed. Sure. But much to her surprise, the pod isn't there anymore. A little hologram device shows up, revealing that the pod was taken by Simon Tycho. The guy tries communicating with her, and despite her stating that she doesn't trust him as far as she can throw... Right, Supergirl, never mind. In short, she does the stupid thing and decides to follow the projector to his space station. Someone didn't learn not to talk to strangers. Up on the pedo station, creepy McPedalbear is speaking with his secretary or whatever she is about Kara. I'm starting to think this symbol she's wearing isn't a coincidence.
No shit, Sherlock.
Oh, by the way,
It's a trap!
seriously, if you didn't see that coming, punch yourself. So Kara is barraged by tiny robot butterflies that shoot lasers. I couldn't make that up if I tried. Her surface temperature is growing exponentially, more than the butterflies could produce. Sir, she's heating up from the inside. She's heating up on her own. I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. Following that up, Richie Rich Sr. here sends in some sort of bioweapon called, get this, the brain. Behold. Now, why does that look familiar? Oh my god, it's chaos! This comic just either got way lazier or way more awesome. Tycho has a rather pointless talk with the president. Then Kara tackles the brain into space, where she ditches it and learns to use her X-ray vision so she can find her pod. But when she finds it, she finds out what the fuel source was. Kryptonite. Tycho finds her, and everyone under 18 reading this just pissed themselves, as he has a face which pretty much confirms that he belongs on several watch lists. Oh, that's issue 3. I think now's a good time to take a break, so we'll be right back. Issue 4 kicks off with Tycho having a back and forth with Thorn, and we see that Kara is being held close to Kryptonite so she doesn't cause any more problems. Tycho intends to dissect her, as if you didn't see that coming. One of Tycho's men feels bad for her and breaks her out. However, when they catch him helping her, they kill him. When they attack Kara, she retaliates and makes a break for it. After she makes security in the station look like a bunch of idiots, she confronts Tycho. But his ace in the hole isn't Kryptonite. Instead, he pulls the Sunstone on her and threatens to smash the thing. She could probably get over there and take it before he could blink, faster than a speeding bullet and all that, but we'll just give her a pass for being new. So what does she do? She fries the station's core and takes the crystal back, then flies off.
Cool guys don't look at explosions.
Her actions whip up a chain reaction, and the result? Tycho, the idiot that he is mutilated by the blast. All these sudden powers, and I can barely control them. I don't know, you seem to be doing a pretty good job of it to me. The issue comes to a close with bullcrap! There is no way he survived that. He'd have been atoms. No doubt you've noticed something by now. I'm being a bit short with these issues. It isn't because it's particularly stellar. This book happens to fall into one of the pitfalls of the New 52 and most modern comics in general. A lot is happening, but so little of it is substance that barely anything is happening at all. And that isn't to say this is devoid of substance, it's just scarce or minimal. And the substance we've been getting isn't exactly revolutionary or all that memorable. It's nice when it's there, but it's never there long enough to sink in because the thing never slows down. I can only hope the future volumes remedy this problem, but for now, let's just continue with this review. Number 5 picks up with Kara flying through space like a rocket with the Sunstone. Over that is dialogue between a few unseen entities. Then we get into something that I am all too thankful for. The captions are actually being used just for thought here. There is no narration from Supergirl. It's all in her head. I've said this several times, and it's one of my biggest pet peeves with comic books. If you're going to use captions for thought, then use them for that or narration, not both. Using them for both is not only confusing, it is unnecessary. You will rarely ever need both narration and thought in a comic book. Now, let's get into what she's actually thinking, though. I'm making a huge mistake. Consistency! I'm still holding my breath. How can I still be holding my breath? I'd like to think that a better question for someone who is new to the situation would be, How am I flying? In space. The Sunstone guides Kara to some sort of gateway in space. Felt like my insides froze when I passed through it, but what was the point of... Wait, the stars! The stars are all different now! How can you even tell? The gateway spits her out in a deserted Argo City, so I'm guessing it wasn't Brainiac's fault this time. She finds that no one's home and then goes to see if the Sunstone can tell her anything. There's no power left. But maybe if I can heat up like I did on... That's not how that works. So Kara's old man shows up on the Sunstone recording and unloads the details of her extended vacation. You know, I just realized something. If you replace Clark with Kara in Man of Steel, that movie would instantly make so much more sense. Sure, tweak a few obvious things, but that movie fit the tone of Kara's character so much more than Clark's. And that's probably the issue Kara has being recognized at all. People complain so much about Superman not being edgier or more relatable, but they completely overlook Kara, who was literally designed to be edgier and more relatable. She's more overtly flawed than him, less restrained, more outwardly emotional, but she's still at her core a good, wholesome person just like Clark. She's trying to find her way in a world unfamiliar. If people can just stop trying to turn Superman into a dark, edgy, relatable type and just turn their attention to her, I'm pretty sure they can find what they're looking for. I would also like to step away from that moment of clarity, however, and point something out. In spite of all the proof that's been smacking her in the face for 4 issues, now is the time Kara decides to believe it. Look, I know about the whole stages of grief thing, but this is a bit of a delayed reaction. Granted, she hasn't had much time to breathe since she landed, but I'll circle back to that. As Zor-El is preparing to end the transmission, it appears that someone kills him. Kara cuts the transmission and takes the Sunstone, but it crumbles in her hands. Overcome by grief, she screams and flies out, throwing a giant-sized tantrum in the deserted streets. I've gotta say, I'm actually liking the scene. Now get ready to suffer from whiplash. The scene is immediately interrupted by someone talking to Christ, that face is scary! So someone reaches out from her off panel and Jesus! Did I turn to an issue of Constantine by accident? What's with all the scariness? So, Rain appears and offers Kara a chance to join her little cult and freeze. Okay, how often in the New 52 am I going to run into this thing of join us? It'll be totally awesome. It's getting kind of old. And apparently Kara agrees with me. She immediately tackles Rain. Did you do this? Did you kill my father?
No! Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Come on.
Rain tries to talk to her, but Kara tries to beat her ugly again. Then Kara gets her hide handed to her and...
You sly dog! You got me monologuing! I can't believe it!
Yeah, Rain starts padding up the rest of the book with a drawn-out monologue that feels like a chore to try and get through. Not kidding, this thing spans 2 whole pages. And it isn't really saying much of anything either, just, you should have chosen to join me. That is literally the whole content of what is being said in 2 pages of drivel. The next issue opens with a rather pointless flashback. I'm serious, I can't make heads or tails of why it's there. Next, we're finding ourselves in New York. In another scene with no rhyme or reason. Yes, I'm aware that it's introducing a recurring support character or something for the series, but she's just kinda here. There's no real effort into trying to make her fit other than she happened to be there at a very crap time. Kinda weak. Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen work at the Daily Planet. Lucius Fox is Bruce Wayne's tech provider. Harry Osborn attends the same school as Peter Parker. This chick? Just there at the worst of possible times. But yeah, Rain attacks New York. Hurrah, hurrah. We'll just pretend Superman wouldn't be there in about 7 seconds. So Kara hallucinates because I guess she got hit too hard in the head, I don't know. She manages to pull the sword out of her cape so she can get a... Wait! This goes right back to my earlier problem. What the heck is holding that cape around her neck that she couldn't just lose it and bail? The sword clearly wasn't actually piercing her. Whatever, her not real parents coach her through this little ordeal, and the whole "will always be with you" shtick comes up, and you know where this is going. We cut back to Rain, who is clearly the quietest mass murderer in the history of ever because somehow Superman still hasn't noticed this yet, despite the fact that the entire National Guard is somehow mobilized and is getting ripped apart in one of the most booming cities in the world. Kara shows up, because this is her book, and the fight ensues, and, Rain really loves to hear herself talk. Want to know how I know? Again, 2 pages of monologue, and Kara only has one cliche line to say in the midst of the entire spiel. But you remain blind to what we have in common. We have nothing in common.
Sure we do. I mean, we both like speaking in phrases that have been dated for decades.
After a monologue of "I am totally awesome, and by the way, there are more of me," Rain summons the "more of me" part. And the last issue is really just a big fight scene, so I'll highlight the good and the bad for you. In one scene, Kara uses her heat vision to lose one of her opponents. While Rain continues to talk, Kara's only thoughts are as follows. "I have to get away from them, but first I have to get away from here. Too many innocent people in danger." And later, one of them finds a subway underground and throws it at her. After she catches it, she takes the time to help people out of the cars and to safety before returning to the fight. And the next crowning moment of awesome is when Kara uses the Poison World Killer to defeat Ursula here. Following that, Rain calls off the fight, and as we've covered, she doesn't shut up. But at least this time it's only 1 page, so blah blah blah, monologue, 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 and flee. Supergirl reflects on her victory of the day, and that's where our comic ends. So, all in all, it's not the worst thing I've ever read. I'd be lying if I said this comic didn't have its strong points, but it also does have its failings, many of which are simply plausibility issues. And of course, there's the disjointedness and rushed feeling of the arc as a whole, probably because it was really 2 arcs crammed into 1 volume. Because of that, and a few other failings, the book felt like it was rushing along, never giving us the chance to rest and take a breath. That'd be excusable, except that the story is just too plain and basic for it. It's not a page-turner. It honestly feels a little bit like work to get through some of these pages. Powder that with a lot of sequences that really don't need to be there, scenes that take too long, or ridiculously stretched out monologues, and you have a comic with a pacing of a race between a geezer, a teen, and a toddler. I find difficulty saying that this wasn't worth my time because it was actually pretty decent. One thing I can think of that felt truly off was how quickly it came to Kara to be totally awesome. I mean, yes, it was really refreshing after the crap we sat through in the last episode, but the development we got was more in line of her accepting Krypton's loss than her becoming a hero. The transition from fighting for herself to fighting for others was way too abrupt, is all I'm saying. Also, I feel like they keep trying to force down our throats that she, specifically she, is something special, even more so than Clark, which I won't say is a bad thing, but adding in the whole searching for answers angle, I'm just not sure was a change for the better when the answer she's looking for really should be the simplest thing in the world. I won't penalize the comic too much for that because that would just be me fishing hard for something not to like about it. The things I don't like start showing up later in the series. As a professional rating, I'll say that I give it a 5 out of 10. It's average. I personally, however, will say that this first volume of Supergirl isn't quite as super as I think it should be, but it is worth a one-shot. And that'll do it for today, Geeks and Geekettes. I'll see you on the next Iconic Assembly. Who said that?